Hi there, Christian Henson from Spitfire Audio here, showing you our new solo strings library. Now, I just have a few things to say about it before I kind of dive into this contextual arrangement that I've done with solo strings, chamber strings, and a little bit of our Spitfire percussion range. And that is, with my composer hat on, I don't know how we've gone for so long without this library. It is not a replacement for our old solo strings library. It is part of the symphonic range, whether that be SSO, the Symphonic Strings Orchestra, or the Chamber Orchestra. I simply don't know how we have not had these colours so far. I know a lot of you will be wanting to focus in on things like legatos, which are very much part of the old solo strings thing, and that is something we're working on, but I'm simply using this library today as I would SSO or SCS, the Symphony Orchestra or the Chamber Strings Orchestra. With that in mind, just three very quick pointers before I dive in. With the standard longs here, and say, for example, the consorts, you're not going to get them to sound realistic unless you use the vibrato. So we've got the expression there, the dynamic control. You've now got a third control that you need to use, vibrato, and you do need to use it and exercise it as much as you would do the dynamics and expression. So it just doesn't sound realistic. And that's because solo players don't tend to articulate vibrato bang on the beginning of every note. So it's sounds more realistic, which leads on to my second point, which is, if you're like me, don't really have time to kind of learn, how to really use three controllers, I would simply always use the long progressive, because that is with the player playing what I refer to as like a 50-50, or singers refer to as a 50-50. So it starts without vibrato, and then it naturally grows. I've been wanting us to introduce this feature for years and years and years. I find it by far the easiest way of programming solo strings, and it's great also if you can form a section. Absolutely brilliant. So when opening solo strings, always look for the progressive articulations. We have one, I think, on every single. I don't know if we have it on the bass. Yes, we do. So have it on every single one, the three violins, the viola, cello, and the bass. Next thing I wanted to show you is like my hidden stash of the really good stuff. But it's not that easy to find. But if basically you go into advanced, other patches, and then if you find the progressive violin, you'll notice instead of there being three, there's actually four. And this is the extra techniques. And this is the one which has just got some amazing stuff in. I'm using this. So just make sure you don't miss this little gem of material played by our progressive violinist. And finally, I think this is going to become the bane of bass players around the world. By far, one of the most exciting sounds I've discovered is the bass harmonics. Let's have a look at those there. So it's amazing what Leon has given us with his bass. It's such a kind of amazing palette of crazy sounds. So the harmonics you play up here, almost like a kind of medieval pipe organ. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, let's jump into, again, I usually use these videos as kind of quite a heavy sell. Listen, I know you don't think you need this, but believe me, if you combine it with this, I don't think I have to do that with this particular library. It's such a kind of fundamental, again, I don't know how we've lived for so long without it. So what I've just done is I've had a bit of fun, and I just want to show you how I would incorporate it with a slightly larger chamber orchestra, kind of playing along those lines of getting a band to accompany another band. Steve Reich kind of experiments with those ideas alongside, creating a bastard child of John Adams and Eric Satie. So basically what I thought I'd investigate, because we don't usually concentrate on these in these demos, is the wonderful pizzicatos. So I've got a whole kind of trio of pizzicato players. So let's start with the first desk here. always with these things, I do quantize them ever so slightly, but I make sure the strength is as low as I can live with, so it still has a natural feel. So you'll see that these things are slightly spread at points. And again, dynamics, a very important part of the reality of adding colour. So it's not just about kind of smashing, it's all about feeling the different dynamics. It's just fantastic. So we've got, and then I have the progressive violins doing a kind of a. Now what I've done is I've stuck a pan reverser on this. Because we record in situ, all the violins are kind of sitting over there. They are spread, but with a part like this, which is a real kind of counterpoint part, I don't want it to sound like one player. So if we have a listen to without the pan flipper. Because it is two different players, it does sound like two players, but I just want to really separate them. So I've put this pan flipper on. And then a third comes in here. And then a viola. Again, you'll hear slight timing inaccuracies. Again, I don't like to tighten everything to the grid because I feel it just sounds computerized. And this has got a real sense of life to it. And what's great is, you know, when you think about these things, it's not about everyone moving at the same time. The great thing about a solo strings library, especially when I'm kind of using it like a chamber library, is to have the individual players undulating in and out of each other. And that's what gives it it's such, you know, amazing coloration and being able to hear each player. I then got these cello kind of bass parts. I'm just using the tree mics on all of this stuff, and I've just doubled that with the bass in octaves. Now joining them down here are my favourite our bassoon, and also some clarinets, the atu. As well as some fun with our orchestral percussion range. I'm just going to move on to the second part now, and I'm making full use of the bass harmonics. And what I'm doing is I'm doing a hyper sound. I'm not making it sound like a proper, you know, bass section. So what I've done is I've called up a massive Fab Filter reverb with a 20-second decay, and let's have a quick listen to that. Absolutely stunning. And this is when I start using our wonderful flautandos, which is the articulation du jour, and also on the progressive I'm using that whispers, the tremolo whispers that we were talking about. So let's just listen to that together. Let's have a listen to when the cello comes in here. So I'm actually using the cello almost like an ensemble, like a cello trio. So let's just have a listen to that. That's the cello flautando. Again, a beautiful aching sound that's making me, I'm really excited. This is the kind of quartet sound I've been looking for years, that kind of passionate, not too horrible, scratchy 1K-ish, warm, blended, amazing. So this is the point where I wanted to kind of open up the aperture. So what I've done here is actually duplicated the cello part into our chamber ensembles flautando patch, which is my favorite writing patch. And I've actually cheated that in using automation. So let's have a listen to that all coming in now. added a higher part there and some tremolandi here. So let's just have a listen to that section, just the strings, again, to experience this idea of the aperture of a kind of musical lens opening. And then basically we have a repeat of the first part here, but with the full band joining. And all I've done is I've doubled up ensemble chambers, pizzicatos. We're having more fun with some of the percussion and stuff, timpani, and I've rearranged the woodwinds so they're higher up. I've also got my favourite Albion 1 Woods High coming in, doing some funky stuff. Jerry Goldsmith stuff, what we got here. And that's what I find with Albion 1 for me. A lot of people find it as a kind of a core module. I find it as a real time saver for beefing up arrangements with pre-arranged ensembles. So that's basically it. It's quite a simple arrangement. As I say, it's the kind of way I work with chamber strings, just implanted onto the solo strings, which we couldn't do before because we didn't have the variety of articulations and the depth of sampling. I love using chamber strings. I love using the woodwinds, the symphonic orchestra, the brass, and it's like just getting another one of those. So I'm going to play it down, and this is basically my kind of board mix, if you will. What I have done is also, Jake and I have done a full proper mix of this track. So keep an eye on the Mother channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. If you want notifications, hit the little bell button because that video will be coming your way very soon. Thanks as always for listening. Bye-bye.